Hello, friends. This is Jesse Juarez, president of the Rotary Club of sunny Seaside, California. You're watching a presentation which was recorded live at one of our club meetings. Seaside Rotary meets via Zoom twice a month. Our meetings feature dynamic presentations from many of the movers and shakers that make Monterey County such a vibrant and hardworking community. If you'd like to join a meeting or learn more about Rotary and the work that we do, you can reach out to Seaside Rotary Club at gmail.com. Again, that's Seaside Rotary Club at gmail.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more dynamic content. And now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Steve McShane to introduce our esteemed guests.
Well, I have a lot of great things to say about our speaker today. I had fun doing a little bit of research. On his bio, he says he married way out of his league and she hasn't caught on yet. A wife of 30 some odd years, two wonderful children that have done so well. It's impressive to know that Seaside has the kind of leadership and a professional city manager that we do with our speaker today. He brings to Seaside since 2015 decades of experience in sustainability, public works projects, leadership development, improving tax bases in every jurisdiction he's played in, which includes several, county leadership, city leadership, even a parks district. Some of the lesser known things to everybody about him is his fascination and love for baseball and vinyl. To say this guy's a cool dude just doesn't do it justice. I'll never forget, when Catino Park reopened, while he could be involved in all the pomp and circumstance, he was on the field and he was hitting balls and he was doing pretty well, if I remember correctly. So we've got a couple of his bosses on the call today, Councilwoman Kaspersky and then of course Mayor Oglesby. So this should be of course very interesting, and he's with us today to share a little bit about his journey in the city and where things are at in Seaside. So please help me in giving a warm Seaside Rotary welcome to our city manager, Craig Malin.
Thank you so much, Steve. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you all for your service on Rotary. Service clubs are very important to building community, and I thank you all for your service as Rotarians and what you do outside of Rotary to help the Seaside community. I've been here about 5 years or so, and I arrived from a place called Davenport, Iowa, a little bit over that way, where I was the city administrator for 14 years. And prior to that, I hold the record for that. I was the county administrator for Douglas County, Wisconsin, which is the northwesternmost county in Wisconsin. And the story goes, I was there for 2 years. I left that county because my daughter was 2 years old, in second grade at the time. And we asked her a question one night at dinner and she said, "Yeah," instead of "yes." So she was picking up, Northwood speech patterns. So my wife said, "Dust off the resume, dear, we're heading south." So I moved on to Davenport, where I got two kids through school, which is like an amazing achievement in this line of work in one place. So that was fun. And I had the opportunity to look around, and I was blessed, consider myself blessed every day, to become city manager of Seaside, the youngest, most diverse, most energetic, most forward-looking city in the region. And part of that blessing is being part of a team, the hardest working, most forward-looking team, small but mighty team around these parts. So I was asked to do a little show, and I was told I didn't have to do a PowerPoint because I can do those. So I have 21 pages of city accomplishments I'm going to read through. No, I'm just kidding. I whittled them down to one page of notes to sort of give folks an overview of what we've been doing and what we are doing, what we hope to do in the future. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, at the end, but I'm just going to sort of go through kind of as fast as I can some of the things Seaside has been working on, some of the things that Seaside is working on, some things that we will be working on. And I've categorized them a little bit, starting with community improvements. And one of the great things of coming to a community is you get to see it as it can be, not as everyone experienced it all the way, up until your arrival. So as I arrived, I was like, oh, are you kidding me? The city has 1,000 acres of land overlooking Monterey Bay. Nobody gets that kind of land to build a community on. And we had, some projects underway and some plans underway, and we tried to make those better and make sure that the ones that were heading in the right direction got done. So, leading with Broadway. Broadway was just a transformation of Seaside's downtown. And it's very rare you get the opportunity to transform a downtown in a community while thinking about and planning a new campus town at the same time. So that's just fantastic. Broadway is done very well, as you can't expect the private sector to make investments until they understand that the community is serious about progress. So Broadway, the transformation of Broadway made it very clear that we were serious about progress in Seaside. We also undertook, some community improvements in our parks in order to give our kids and our families better spaces to do more things. So Laguna Grande Park, which I get to sort of look out over all the time from my office, has a new playground, and I get to actually hear kids playing on the playground. It's just wonderful. And then we went to Keno Park, and sort of our largest neighborhood park, and we just transformed that with a few $1 million worth of work, and the reception has been wonderful. Yeah. So for the record, and I don't want to boast about anything, but I did hit the first grand slam at the new Keno Park, even with my foot being banged up a bit. So that goes right on the resume. We've done about we're in progress, I should say, of doing about $10 million of road and sidewalk improvements. So, we've transformed a little bit from people complaining about the streets to people saying, gosh, there's a lot of construction activity. Can you winnow that down a little bit? But we're working through that. And then we're also, and as we do that, we're doing a lot of sustainability and transportation improvements. So we're welcoming bicycles more than had been welcomed here in Seaside in the past. And that's fantastic. And we're doing things like, we remodeled City Hall. If you haven't been in City Hall recently, you have to, well, we're closed now, but when we reopen after the pandemic, make sure you stop by, because City Hall was returned to its sort of original splendor. It's got red carpets back, and the art gallery goes all the way around. It's just fantastic place to work. And we're adding our solar energy units out in our parking lot. So that's going great, and I get to watch that, and that's going to go live by the end of the year. We're going to actually plug it in, and Seaside City Hall will be powered by the sun. That'd be fantastic. As we're doing that building of stuff, sort of the first things to do to demonstrate, how well Seaside can do projects, we've been dreaming with the community about how we move forward in the future. So one of the things we did was we put our economic and community development staff right on Broadway, took an old vacant storefront and put our planning staff there. So it's Seaside Creates, and again, we're a little bit closed during the pandemic, but as soon as that breaks, stop on by again and watch us dream about how we make Seaside better. General plan update's been underway for a little while, and every now and then we have to sort of slide it back off of the front burner onto the back burner as we move projects through, so because we don't want any conflicts between the general plan update and the plans that are moving forward. But we've dreamed a little bit about creating a civic campus up on the general gym at the peak of Broadway. And we have contracted for a charrette to think through with the community how we go about planning for the environmentally responsible development of that glorious land up on General Gym. And that whole charrette idea, really got reinforced when we used a charrette to think through what do we do on what used to be called Surplus 2. As I arrived, was now called Campus Town, which is great. Was called Surplus 2, and I was like, well, nobody wants to live on Surplus 2. Let's give it, let's give it like a real name. And what might that name be? Well, it's right next to a campus. Let's call it Campus Town. So we invited people to stop by and to share, their most hopeful aspirations for what that might be like. And we did that. And I knew at the time, because I've been through this before, that if you ask the community what they like, they'll come up with really great ideas. And so it's walkable, it's sustainable, it's inclusive, it's all the great stuff. It's got good design. And when you do that, what happens is there's this transformation that occurs, a couple transformations that occur actually. The transformation, one of them is that the local officials are no longer like selling a project or anything. All they're doing is making sure that the project that the community designed gets done. Okay, so that's just a completely different transformation. You are the defenders of the community's vision. And people can see that they can have meaningful impact in civic life. So that's just been wonderful, and we're going to port that experience from Campus Town up to Seaside East. We've been working really hard recently, in part because Fora is gone. After 20 odd years, Fora is a memory. And the city of Seaside, on July 1 of this year, became a fully empowered city. We can do all the things that cities can do. We can dream up our own dreams and make sure that our own dreams come to fruition. That's just fantastic. And I don't need anybody, I don't need some extraterritorial group weighing in on whether or not they think that Seaside's vision is, good for them. So that's part of why we're moving the charrette idea forward on Seaside East. We issued Fora, before they went out of business. Thank Mayor Oglesby for his service on Fora for this. They issued $30-odd million in bonds so that we can start tearing down some of those buildings out there. So we got Seaside's got about $6.5 million of bonds. We're going to build buildings. That's going to be great. And all that, paved the way. All that planning paved the way for the Campus Town project to be get through entitlements. So it got through entitlements, and 1,485 units of vast array of residential projects in mixed uses with commercial developments. We have a little lawsuit we got to work through. We're trying to work through that, and we hope to be turning dirt up there next year. Actually, next week. I'm not making this up. Next week, they're out there doing soil boring. So the construction will start on Campus Town, at least the soil boring part next week. So that's really, really fun. We sold the land under which the golf course hotel was supposed to go. So we're no longer land banking that. We put it in the private sector's hands, and now they have responsibility for making that project go. And they were doing really well on that. We had, again, the pandemic causes a little bit of delay in the finance markets. So now they're paying us about $300,000 a year in order to maintain their rights to that property. We have them in a really good position. If they don't move forward, we can buy back land that we sold to them for about $4-ish million for $800,000. So that was a pretty neat little thing to have them agree to. On the housing front, we're doing a lot of work. Not just the 1,485 units, coming out of Campus Town. We have the Ascent project right on Broadway, on Upper Broadway, that's been approved and entitled. We have the Glover project that's approved and entitled, coming back for water next Thursday, 14 acre feet of water. So that'll be great. We we've hired a housing program manager. It's kind of hard to do housing stuff when you don't have anyone specifically and working on housing projects. One of the things that's that's on the street right now, not something that we're about to do, something on the street right now, is our bids to build an accessory dwelling unit, a demonstration unit. So we, the city, are going to build that demonstration unit, and we're going to do two of them, one that's stick built on site and one that's prefabbed and gets delivered to the site. And then we'll share our experience on building ADUs, and people will go in and be able to sort of look at them and figure out, which process, the stick building process or the prefab process, is more efficient for them. And residents will be able to use our own plans, so that rather than having to spend their own money on architects to get plans, and maybe that money is money that could be better used for actual housing rather than architectural services. So those are available, which is pretty cool. On the staff side, we adopted this. I had a nice discussion with the great team I'm blessed to work with about what our mission is. And it wasn't one of those bureaucratic corporate mission statements. We got down to 3 words. We are here to involve, innovate, and inspire. So we paint those words on some walls in order to reinforce that message. And they've been doing that. We've been modernizing operations across all of our departments. The police and fire department are going through starting their accreditation processes now to make sure that the good men and women of our police and fire departments aren't just locally loved, but they are exceeding the highest national standards. So that's happening. We had a discussion in the community about policing and what policing should look like in communities. And one of the things that we did was to add social workers to our staff, so that every emergency that we get calls for doesn't have to be a police emergency, doesn't have to have a sworn law enforcement officer there. Because having the law enforcement officer, as wonderful as they are with the gun on their hip, sort of always makes the discussion a little bit different. So we're in the final stages of hiring our social workers, and they're going to be added to our team so that if people need help, that's not a medical emergency or fire, which is what the fire department does, or a criminal situation, which is what the police department does, we'll have social workers on our staff that will be able to help. In order to fund some of these new improvements, we've been working really hard at making sure that our finances are in good order. We've added some revenue sources with the help of our citizens, and that's very, very helpful. And we basically just about tripled, between doubled and tripled our fund balance. And I was kind of hopeful that that would go on a little while longer. The pandemic, though, has caused us to have to dip into our fund balance. So it's a good thing to have a fund balance to dip into. So that's the good news. Running at a little bit of a deficit this year. We had originally projected the deficit would be about $3 million. Now we think it might be about $800,000 this year. Keep in mind that $800,000 or $3 million deficit, whatever it turns out to be, is that low? That sounds like those are big numbers, but it would have been worse had every single employee in the city of Seaside not given back some compensation voluntarily, and didn't freeze some positions or lay off some positions. So we cut about $5 million out of our budget on the personnel side. So that's at 800,000 to 3.2 million would have been, 5.8 to do the math, 7 million deficit without that reduction. And we hope we have a new finance director, and he just delivered his first quarterly report. He did an excellent job. And if you haven't been able to see the presentation, I would encourage you to go to the website, find the manifest. It's a little thing I write every now and then, and attached to it is the first quarterly report, and it's an excellent report. So take a look at that. Okay, Almost done. We do a lot of helping here. We're a community that has no shortage of needs and an abundance of caring. So we do things that others don't do. We were the first on the peninsula to have an eviction moratorium in response to the pandemic. We have we assisted a little bit with the new homeless shelter being built in terms of fighting it in the community. Happens to be about a block from where I live. And we've operated at least two new safe parking locations. Some folks will remember that there were about 30 or so folks in RVs out at Roberts Lake. And we started that during the initial phases of the pandemic when nobody was supposed to go outside of their house. So there was no reason to go to the park. And then when that changed and people could get out more and enjoy our parks spaces, we needed to move those folks. So we moved them up to a location on Colonel Durham. By the way, that's part of Campus Town. And there's no expectation that that's going to slow down the Campus Town development whatsoever. We're under contract to sell that property to KB Bakewell for $18 million in 2 phases, and we're going to do that. So those people are safely housed out there now during the pandemic. Once the pandemic is over, hopefully they'll figure out other places to live than there. We have a rental assistance program that we're about to start probably next week. We have about $35,000 of funds through the United Way that we're going to offer for rental assistance. I think one of the benefits of that is we'll see what the need is. If we offer $35,000 of United Way funding, we may get far more than that in request, and then I'll give the council a good idea of what may be coming down the line. As the eviction moratorium that is in part authorized through state action ends early next year. We have a business loan program that Joy assists us with as part of C-Jobs, and they're having another meeting tomorrow. We're going to be looking at other applications. That's fantastic. And we do food and mass distributions. We're spending, we get a little bit of extra CDBG money for COVID, and we've been spending that on food and mass distributions. There are 500 plus, 700 or so families that stop by on Saturdays here at City Hall once a month, and we do the work of a lot of volunteers, and Mayor Oglesby is certainly there. We all sort of have our positions now. We know exactly what we do, and it's kind of like a grocery store pit stop. Somebody pulls up, and then everyone loads the food in, and then they pull out. So we're doing that. The next one will be next Saturday. If you're on the board or commission, you want to volunteer, we're happy to have you. And then finally, we mentioned a little bit about this, just get these things on your calendar. The Sonoma Court renovation that our good partners at MPUSD sold us the land at a pretty reasonable cost. I think it was $2,000. They sold us that land that they weren't using, and then we made some investments at the city. And next Wednesday at 3:30, we're going to have a ribbon cutting. And if you haven't heard that yet, it's only because really only me and the mayor, I think Mayor Pro Tem Pacheco sort of settled on that date yesterday afternoon. So we'll be sending out notice to the Neighborhood Improvement Commission and the MPSD board, and we hope you all come down along with the residents, and as long as everyone's 6 to 10 feet apart, that'll be great. But that'll be next Wednesday at 3:30. So even in the midst of a pandemic, we're making progress. And then the last thing is, one of the wonderful things about working here is we have this fantastic city hall and this great, glorious council chambers, which may be a little bit small every now and then for sort of our needs of a growing community, but it's this architecturally splendid. But we're not able to have people in our buildings. One of the reasons I'm wearing a vest and all that is because our police department's downstairs, and we're trying to make sure that we operate as safely as possible. So we separated out all the HVAC so that my office is whatever the outside temperature is, which is fun. And if I wasn't from the Midwest, I'd probably be in a jacket. But because I'm hardy and from the Midwest, I can deal with just a vest. So while we're having a council transition, we can't have the normal transition where friends and family come down and clap and hug, here at City Hall just yet. But we're going to do it out on sort of the veranda of City Hall. Our conference room has really moved outside of City Hall. So next December, December 3rd, at the first council meeting in December, plan on being in the City Hall parking lot about 4 or 4:30. We'll send you the exact date soon. And we're going to do the first meeting outdoors, at least the swearing in part, so people can clap and share give respect and share respect for the campaign for the next council to move Seaside forward even faster. So that's my short story. I try to do it as fast as I can to respect everyone's time. I'm happy to take any questions you have. I'm going to take a breath now.
Greg, well, thank you for that. Definitely a lot of information, a lot of great information, but appreciate you taking the time here to share that with us. And it looks like, looking at the chat box window, we have a number of questions here. I'm going to do my best to read them off in the order that they were written. The first, a very, very serious question. One of our guests asked what the city of Seaside is doing with the ongoing drug activity at Mescal Court. And the person who wrote this question did express some frustration, feeling that they're not receiving assistance from the city.
Okay. If it's the house, I think it is, that we're having a, how best to describe it? Well, we're having a meeting with the occupants and the owners next week. Some of these things like this, take, unfortunately, longer than, if I was a neighbor, I would like, because we have to build a case. And so we built a case, if it's a house, I think it is. And it's, we declare those things nuisances and people have to vacate. So that's the conversation that's happening next week.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then our next question in the chat box window, how many additional units for the city do you expect from the ADUs?
I think we're going to get to, triple digits at some point. 2 years, maybe 3 years from now, there'll be 100 ADUs in Seaside, would be my guess. I don't, they make so much sense. You don't have to increase infrastructure, and they allow people to stay in place. I mean, there's a number of people who are on incomes that aren't increasing at the rate that the cost of living is increasing, and if they can use their unused space either in their dwelling or in their yard in order to shelter somebody, well, it makes a world of sense, which is why the city is doing things like making sure that there's no permit fees for that, and is providing this demonstration unit and providing standardized plans. So we hope that those are get taken advantage of, and there's a good supply of ADUs in short order here.
Thank you. And the next question I have in the chat box window, what 3 things would you say are essential to being an effective city manager, and what does it take to get a city council to get along?
Okay, I wrote this once. I mean, you need some. I think you need empathy, you need curiosity, and you need bravery. I think those are the things you need. And if you don't have an authentic story for being in the line of work, you're doomed. Here's my authentic story, and then I'm going to talk about the council thing. I had like a documentary level childhood. I was in a wheelchair. I I was in an orphanage, and you don't know exactly. I knew I was poor. You don't know how poor you are until you're in an orphanage. You're like, well, I'm too poor to have a family. So you get fed and sheltered, as a child by society. It's not hard to have an authentic reason to come to work to repay the debt of social capital you have, and try to make sure that kids in Seaside get a better chance, just like the kids in Danport got a better chance, when I was there. So that's why I do this, and that's why it's easy for me to come to work. Effective city councils, I think, are most characterized by their understanding that they are a blended family. Every time there's an election, we get a new person or lose a new person or whatever, the family changes a little bit, and the working together to improve the community requires, probably more than anything, curiosity and humility. And if you can partner those two things up, you'll be great. With committed staff and enthusiastic citizens, you'll do great. That's why Seaside is succeeding as we speak.
Excellent. Well, great answer there. Thank you so much. And next question in the chat box window is regarding the senior living apartment. Is there a reason the Ascent Apartments in the senior living by Co has not started construction? The community really appreciates the charrettes. I think I might be reading that wrong. Thank you for continuing to hold these ideas, projects, starts.
Okay. Yeah. Well, once the city goes through the entitlement process and sells the land, to the private sector, it's up to them to get the work done. So we've done all we can do, and I think I know what happened is, they, like everything, they were ready to go, and then a senior care facility opened up in Monterey, and then they wanted to wait just a little bit, so to not be in direct competition with that as that was filling up. So then when they got ready to go again, then we had the pandemic. These things just have their own timetables, and I always caution people to not believe everything a developer ever tells you. There's clearly a market for the need for senior housing here, so I have no worry that it will get built. It will get built.
Excellent, thank you. Next question here. What three? I know you touched on this a little bit in what you've told us. What three things do you love most about your job?
I love the profession. I interned for senators and congressmen, and it was so disconnected. And I walked into a little village hall one day, and I got to solve people's problems and help them. So that was great. I like that no day has ever been exactly the same. 32 years. It's always a little bit different. That's great. And when you see staff develop and you see communities, I'm going to do more than three. I'm sorry. You see, communities realize their dreams or exceed their dreams. That's just fantastic. And you see staff. I've had 12, I think, people who work for me who become city managers or county administrators. That's just great. It's huge fun. Wait, don't tell my two bosses, I can't believe I get paid for this.
Oh, yeah, your secret is safe with us there. But it sounds like you have a lot of passion there. We greatly appreciate it. Next question here. What can the city do about the blighted Seaside Market on Del Monte? Given that the property has sat vacant for decades, do you think it's time for the city to create a plan for that property?
I'll tell you what the city can do best is the city can create the environment in which private capital understands that they can succeed. Okay, So, prior to the Broadway project being done, nobody would believe that. Now it's easy to believe. And I have had conversations with developers who are interested in that parcel. And what they're sort of going through right now is the property owner is trying to optimize their land sale value, and the developer is trying to optimize their profit. They will find some equilibrium, and they will move something forward. I don't really think it's a good idea in that case for the city to do a specific plan for that property. I think private capital is normally best at that. I think what communities do best is give sort of broad strokes toward what we think might happen, what we would like to happen, what's the path of least resistance for developers, which is why the charrette experience, for campus town work, which is why the charrette experience for Seaside East will work. So in large scale areas, I think providing large scale vision is a good idea. Getting specific about specific properties normally doesn't work well, and really doesn't work well in California, where the lead times given CEQA for zoning are so long.
Excellent. And the next question I have here is, based on your experiences across various cities and counties, what does it take to have a strong, functional permitting and building department?
Personnel. We'll get there. I worked for one of the fastest, if not the fastest, certainly one of the fastest growing cities in Illinois for the first 11 years of my career, where we doubled the size of the community and made the tax base grow by like 8-fold, like it just exploded. And it was a small little place, and it just expanded. And I got to watch all that happen early on in my career, so I have some sense of when do we expand, and we'll be expanding soon. And honestly, our city hall is, love our city hall. It's just this architectural little marvel, but it's not big enough for this community. So we need to think about that and come up with a vision for not to abandon this glorious building, but to have a place where all the thinking and all the doing can happen at the same time.
And we have another question here regarding something I was curious about. I'd heard a little bit of information about the proposed Costco gas station, when that might open.
Well, as soon as Costco can open it, and again, I guarantee you that the folks at Costco really do want to sell more gas and induce more people into their store by having gas. So that's going forward again, nothing that the city is doing to slow them down. It's going as fast as they can get it done.
No, understandable. Definitely a lot of moving pieces there, and as a Costco customer myself, hoping that gets off the ground soon. Another question here regarding having a fiber optic line and why the city of Seaside doesn't have one. Do you think that having it would narrow the digital divide?
Maybe. Maybe. That's a very technical question to respond to. I think you have to have. The question is, do you invest in fiber optic technology, or do you invest in wireless technology, or do you see those as a false choice, and do you try to optimize in the technologies that you're using? I think fundamentally that's the decision. Ultimately, the city council would have to make that a priority, and/or create some sort of public utility to do that. Cities can do that. We just haven't done it quite yet.
And then just to respect the time, we're getting close to 1 o'clock. We have time for one more question. And Craig, this is going to be a bit of a hardball question. Can you share a little bit about your hobbies?
Yeah, I play baseball, coach I'm a coach for Seaside High School baseball, which is great fun because you get high schoolers, telling you that you're an old man every day, which is huge fun. And every time you put on a glove, you're 9 years old. So in your mind, you're 9 years old. To them, you're ancient. So that's huge fun. And then I climb mountains because it's everything that my job is not. I have a single goal, and it's very evident whether you get there or not. And there's nobody telling me I'm doing it wrong. So I get to go do that, and that's fun. And then I get to come back here and learn how everything I'm doing is wrong and how we can make it better. So it's huge fun.
Wonderful, wonderful. Didn't mean to scare you there with the warning about the hardball question there, but thought we would end the Q&A session with a fun question. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all the information you shared, and mentioning climbing mountains. It certainly sounds like you climb a lot of mountains every day with the work that you do.
Wait. Everything that happens that's good in Seaside is because we have a great staff and a committed city council. I just try to get out of their way and make sure that they're appropriately resourced. That's it.
Well said. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording session now. Mr. Craig Malin, thank you again.